What's up guys, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, and this is the Work Tough Gear Carnivore. This is designed by my friend Eric over at Outer Limitless. You can see his logo there. And yeah, I mean, this is a big, beefy, hefty, chunky knife. When I picked it up, I'm like, this reminds me of sort of a combination between the Rat 7 from Ontario Knife and like an ESEE 6 or an ESEE 5. Just a big chunky blade. So he's designed a couple of knives so far and has worked with Work Tough Gear. This one to me it's probably the most in line with what I want for a survival knife. Now, a couple of things. SK85 is your steel, which Work Tough Gear uses a lot on their knives. You can see we've got this fuller here. It's going to reduce some of the weight. You've got a hole there for a lanyard. You've got holes on both sides. I put the lanyard on the bottom here. Holes on, both the top and the bottom. If you want to run a lanyard, you can set up a system that goes like this through both holes. You can set up a system that goes like this through that hole. Lots of different ways to set it up. G10 for the handles. There are a couple different color options that are available. I'm gonna roll in some of the details down here at the bottom as far as length, weight, things like that. When I look at this and I hold it, I'm like, this qualifies as a survival knife for me because of the size, the length, the weight, and everything. This is also just a big camping knife. This does give you multi-use options if you're out in the woods. So you can certainly baton with it, definitely thick enough to do that, strong enough to do that. You can carve with it. You can do some of that finer work with it. I want to mention right here, you got a swell in the handle right about there. And when you lock your hand in here, that's where it's most comfortable for me. So if you tend to put your hand back toward the back end of the blade, I think the palm swell may feel a little strange to you. But if you do like to lock up there, really, you got that palm swell right where you want it. The G10 is textured there, not I don't know. It's not aggressive, but it's definitely got some texture on it, some like stippling. So that'll give you a little bit more of a grasp when you're out there using it. You can also, with a lanyard, you know, if you put it on, twist like so, you can get your fingers around the end here, and then you can chop like this relatively safely. You can also just kind of put your two fingers here and chop that way. The thing that I would say about this knife as a survival knife, and I'll talk about this in a future video actually, is that because of the length, it allows you to, you know, do some of the work that you want to do. You can choke up there if you want to do that as well. You can do some of that more fine work and carving. But if you're going to have a survival knife, for me, it's got to be able to chop. And I don't just mean like you can chop with any little knife like this, but with a bigger knife like this, you can really hack at something without being worried that you're going to smash your fingers. So that's why it falls into the survival knife category for me. This is one of those things that if you had just this out in the woods, it gives you a lot of different options as far as the tool. Let me show you the Kydex sheath here. So that's what it looks like. I just threw this extra loop on for kicks. They do give you this other additional loop. I just attach it to the lanyard, so I had it. But you can set that up here if you wanted to carry it, you know, on your back. If you want to flip it around, carry it on your front, like so. I put the sheath or the belt clip on, so this can run through your belt. Nice thing is that it has hook and loop and also the button, so you can take that off, on and off easily. I asked Eric how he'd recommend carry it. He said he prefers cross draw. So you would, for me, since I'm right-handed, you would flip this to the other side and then you would set it up so it would be on your belt like this and you'd reach across and draw out like that. But yeah, it's a cool knife, man. It's just a cool knife. And like I said, there's a couple different color options, color variations out there. But let me show you this thing in use so you can get a sense of the work that it can actually do. All right, so we'll just do a little feathering here. This thing does come really nice and sharp. Got a convex edge, so that's sweet. You can see how I'm holding it with my thumb up there. That top is wide enough that it doesn't feel like it's gonna cut into my hand. And up here, it's 90, but back here, it's definitely rounded, so way more comfortable. Very little subtle thing. Sharpened there and not sharpened here makes a big difference as far as comfort level. So you can see, I can certainly get some curls out of this guy. No problem. I've actually lost a bunch. They're on the rock down there, but you can see this guy does that work just fine. There's that. All right, so one quick observation after using the fire steel. Obviously you can see where I'm striking the fire steel. I'm not striking it back here because that's rounded. However, when you hold it, you're holding it like this. In general, for me, when I strike a fire steel, I want it as close to my thumb as possible, but that side is not sharpened, it's rounded there. So it does feel a little bit, with a small fire steel, you do have to make sure you get really good control to angle it. So I got plenty of sparks off that fire steel. It is a very short fire steel and a small fire steel. It's an Exotac Nanorod XL, I think it's called, and I keep that on my keychain, but it's not a big hefty fire steel. But just a heads up, it is, I think, overall better to have this section smoothed so that when you hold your thumb like this, you're not beating your thumb up on the two edges. That's totally comfortable. But it may take a little bit of experience to get you comfortable with striking the fire rod a little bit further out, especially if it's a smaller fire rod. But as you saw, feathers, no problem. Striking the fire steel, no problem for the Carnivore. There's the thickness for that one. And that's what the Carnivore did to it. Quick work. All right, so you've seen this in use on camera. I've used it off camera as well. This thing is a win. Price point right now, $199. You can do 4 interest-free payments via PayPal, which is kind of nice to do as well, over 4 months. This is a great knife. So I'm gonna say something you might be like, what? But hear me out. This thing competes to me with like an ESEE 6. This thing definitely competes with a Ontario Rat 7. There are some differences. The Rat 7 is going to cost you half the price, a little bit less than half the price of this. But this thing has SK85 versus a 1095, I think maybe a 1075 in that one. That one's got that black coating. This doesn't have that coating. So pluses and minuses to that. Competing with an ESEE is like, who would dare say that? But it's very similar to the ESEE 6. It's longer. It's got some additional functions that I think add value to it. So 1095 versus SK85, you got to make the determination for you if you want to switch out on steels. I do like lanyard hole here, 2 lanyard holes here. It gives you a lot of variety as far as to how you want to set up your lanyard system. That's a plus towards the Carnivore. I would like a smaller choil for me. I don't need that choil to choke up all the way here. They just brought the actual cutting edge back farther and then just a tiny spot so I could sharpen it. That would work fine for me. I do like the fact that this is rounded and then it's 90 degrees there. I think that's a huge move because you could still really lock in there with no gloves on and not cut your hand up or, just it beats your hand up after a while if you're bearing down like this. But you can still spark with a spark of fire steel. I will say if they brought the blade down a little bit, had just had this as the cutting edge down a little bit and just had this, a tiny choil there, and then this as your finger guard, that might make it a little bit more comfortable for a fire steel. Again, I want to acknowledge I used a small fire steel, so with the big one, it would be more comfortable to be striking it up here as opposed to down here. The one other thing for me that the ESEE wins on, same thing as the Ontario knives, in general, they just have a very blocky handle. This one's got a bit more contour. I think they call this the gator style of gripping or kind of dippling. Is that what they call it? I think that's the word. I like this, but I would like it blockier. I don't care for almost on any knife a big palm swell. This isn't big, but a palm swell at all. I just want it chunky. That makes it easier for me to use. I liked the original Benchmade Bushcrafter, had too many contours on the blade, on the handle as well. There are some other knives like that. This one is not terrible. It's not like, oh my gosh, it doesn't fit my hand at all. I would like it just to be blockier. If the handle was blockier, they put the cutting edge down longer, got rid of this choil, which is not bad, but not necessary. I think this thing is major competition for the ESEE. Now, Work Tough gear, and this knife in particular, don't have the popularity of ESEE when it comes to survival knives. Almost nobody does when it comes to those types of knives. But I think this thing is definitely a win. It is also a bit, I think a little bit thicker than your standard ESEE 6. And when I was batoning with it, when I was chopping with it, there's no part of me that was like, nah, man, this thing isn't, like, it's not gonna do the job. It does have some more heft than an ESEE 6, which I like. If you're gonna carry a knife this big, a little bit of extra weight to give you a little more chopping power, for me, that's definitely a win. So you can tell that I like it. I will tell you, I've liquidated a lot of knives over the years just because, I mean, how many knives can you possibly use, right? You don't take a U-Haul to heaven, right? So that being said, I've kept ESEE 5, ESEE 6 as some of my favorite knives. I also have a little Ontario, I forget what it's called right now, but it's a very short, it's like a 3.5, 4-inch blade, chunky, blocky handle. And yeah, this competes with some of the ones that I've kept. So let me hear your thoughts on the Carnivore. There are some different options where they put out the knives. They'll put out different handle colors, different liners. I think I just saw one on their site. Black handles and red liners, which sounds pretty cool. That's very everyday tactical vids of them. But let's hear your thoughts on the Work Tough Gear Carnivore in the comments now. Hey, thanks as always for checking out the videos here on YouTube. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.